I start with a picture, with this picture. Many of you should recognize it. It's the front cover of, thank you. It's the front cover of Tugboat, and this is about the great conference in India. It was really great. And on this conference I had a talk called, I think the talk was Output Routine Made Easy. And some people in the audience started to shout that this is a misnomer because output routine cannot be made easy. And you know what, since then I wrote several output routines, and probably the people are right. It's really it's really very difficult to make an output routine. Okay, I will talk again about output routine. I will talk about output routine for illustrated books. Okay, let me see whether it's Command L, I think, makes it full screen. Yes, do you see it? Great. Okay, now the most complex part of tech is output routine. Yes. And the reason why output routine, and the situation when output routine becomes really complex is when you try to do illustrations. Or let me say that in LaTeX language, floats. When you try to do something floating, everything works badly. Well, in plain tech, you have so-called insertions. There was really good paper by David Solomon in 1990, and if you really want to torture yourself, just read and reread this with the papers until you understand them. It will take a lot of time. In LaTeX, well, you have floats, and floats in LaTeX can span one column or two columns, and they move here and there. And this is all in the ltfloat.ttx file. And again, it's the most hairy part of LaTeX 2, LaTeX 2e, and I don't even want to think what they're going to do in LaTeX 3 with floats. In context, they have a really exquisite output routine. They have m columns, and for m columns you can have float which takes n columns. Just imagine a newspaper. You have many columns of newspapers, and you have some photographs which take 3 or 4 columns, or 2 or 5, or so on. And if you look at the Hans paper, it has great interface and really good algorithm. I think that LaTeX people should probably look at it because it's nice, and will occupy a lot of time to re-implement it because it's difficult. Now, I would say that all the output routines, all the algorithms used in output routines have the same common assumptions. And assumptions are that you have text, and this text tells you the story. And as an afterthought, you have some illustrations which you should stick somewhere, and you say, okay, I don't want to put illustration too early, I don't want to put them too late, they should be somewhere close to the point where my text is, but still my pages should be nice, and I should not rearrange. I probably don't want to put table 1 after table 2, so the streams should be ordered, and so on and so forth. But the main idea is that you arrange text, and then you arrange illustrations. What happens if this is wrong? What happens if you try to make something where this does not, where the author did not do it this well? How could it be that this is wrong? Well, let me give you, okay, first the definition. I will call, it's probably a bad term, but I will use it anyway. I will call an illustrated book or illustrated text a text where the story is told by the illustrations, and your words are something auxiliary, something after this. And if you think about how it could be, here is my example. It's an art album. By the way, it's a very good book by Rick Cusick. I really like it. And look at this. You have illustrations, and you have several illustrations which take the Versa page. You have illustrations that take Recta part, and you have some text which, and obviously whoever made this book started to put illustrations on the page and put the text afterwards. And the illustrations, the order of them, and their position in the book actually tells the story. And this is a common situation with old art, with all art books. Actually, it's the same situation with art exhibition. I just found out that when they make a new exhibition, they have several committees. One of the committees is called hanging committee. They don't hang people, they hang pictures. And it's a very difficult decision where and how to hang them, how to put them that they make something. And after you hang the pictures, you just put something, some filler, and the text here filler. Well, you say, okay, art albums, art books are a very special case. Probably, maybe we don't even need tag for them. Well, you probably need, but let me tell you something else. This is Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations, which every year publishes statistical yearbook. And it's, let me say this, it's one of my favorite customers because it's nice to work for a great organization and they pay well. This is done in tech. This is actually mock-up page. Don't pay attention to what is the graph, but just look what you say, what you see here. You see here Versa page and Recta page. You have spread. On the spread you have maps, you have charts, and they have much more than this. And on their pages it's the maps and charts and all this which tells the story. Text, as it should be in a good statistical book, well, they have special chapters which is text only, which introduction and so on. But in most of the statistical data, the data is in pictures, the data is in maps, text is auxiliary, and you should see the story from the pictures. So you have illustrations. Illustrations are put on predefined places, so obviously the designer who did this expected that the author will tell, here is my map, here is my another map, and so on. And as to text, well, text should follow the illustration. It should just be put on some spaces and be around the illustration. The problem is that if you try to do this in tech has a completely different paradigm of doing this. What tech does is it creates a column of text. When the column of text is ready, it's sent from the page builder to output routine. Then illustrations are stuck inside, and you go. It's very text-oriented paradigm. So if you want to make statistical yearbook for United Nations, you need to do something special. So at the rest of my talk, I will just tell you how I did this statistical yearbook. Okay, here is what I got from graphical designer. Here's what I gleaned from the specification of graphical designer, because they speak a different language. He thought that the main unit is a spread. Spread has Recta page and Versa page, so two of them form the unit for you. He divided each page into 4 quadrants, so here they are called by the UL is upper left, UR is upper right, and so on. I will use lowercase for the even pages and uppercase for the odd pages, and each illustration should take only the integer number of quadrants. So unlike the situation, for example, with context or okay, let's think about LaTeX. In LaTeX you have different, you have set up width of your illustration. It's either one column or two columns, but your height could be any. Here your width and height could take only integer numbers. And because you think about spread, just another thing, you have in LaTeX the command clear double page. Here we have clear spread, which is the same thing, but instead of going into the next odd page, it goes into the next even page. So you have four types of illustration. You have single illustrations, which take just one quadrant. You have tall illustrations. It's two quadrants, one upon each other. You have wide, which again two, but like this. And you have big, which take four quadrants. In the previous editions, they had extra big, which would take 6 quadrants, which start on one page and go to another. Fortunately, they stopped doing this atrocity, and it's very good for the readers. It's much better for me. Okay, so here's my interface. I said, okay, if you know exactly where your illustration is going, let's take a LaTeX environment where we exactly say how many quadrants you take and what is the first quadrant of your set. So you say begin chart S means single, and UL means upper left, and since in uppercase it means that it's on an odd page, like this. Or you can say begin map, which would be T, tall, upper right in lowercase. It means that it starts in the upper right on the even page. Same is WLL or big UL, which means that you have it occupying 4 quadrants. You can count how many different combinations you can have. I will just tell you the answer. It's 18. And in my implementation, I just have 18 boxes, which I just fill with this. And unlike LaTeX solution, because I exactly know the height, I will just put them into boxes. So, and boxes could be up to 4 meters, I think, tall. So I can put a lot of them into it. And I will just V-split when I need to get the top illustration. Just V-split the box and take the first illustration in my list. Okay, a little bit about algorithm. Let me remind you that in tech you have basically 2 parts of your of the way you create a page. You have page builder, and page builder just takes line after line of text, puts them in column, and when you have a column of the size v size, it just sends it to OTR. And you have OTR, which takes the column of text, does something, and then sends. Okay, in classical solution, if you have 1 column design, you send it to the output. But you have 2 columns. The solution which was done by a lot of people, which you had just followed because it was easier this way, is that if you have column of text, you remember this, and if you have 2 columns, that's when you are ready to push a page. So you basically have 2 stages of OTR. Either it's column or 2 columns when you're ready to send a page to the output. Okay? So what do I know when on the first stage? On the first stage, page builder sent me a column of text. I also, at this stage, I know what is my column, whether it's first or the second, and I know whether it's verso or recta. Also at this stage, I have a lot of boxes with illustrations, and I know whether I have any illustrations for this column or for this page. On the second stage, what do I have? Normally, I just have columns, 2 columns from the first stage, which I must combine. Okay, let's talk a little bit about algorithm. So, first stage, I have my column of text. What do I need? First, there could be a situation when I really don't need to output any text. How it could happen? It could happen if I have 1 big illustration. Remember, big illustration is one which takes the page completely and I don't need to put any text here. Or I could have 2 wide illustrations, one after another. What should I do? This could happen if I'm on the first column or in the second column. But if it happens on the second column, I'm in a bad situation, because if it happened on the second column, it means that I have a first column of text which doesn't belong here. And this is error. In this situation, I just need to tell the user that the user must rearrange the input and give me text after all the pictures, so I would do it right. Otherwise, what can I do? If I see that I don't need to output text, I send the text back to my page builder and just start to put illustrations on the page. I will call it special case. Okay, suppose I went through this, I don't have two wide or one big illustration. What happens? Well, again, then I need to output a column. But maybe, just maybe, I don't need to output text on this column because I have two single illustration or maybe one tall illustration. If it happens, what can I do? Well, I send my text back to the page builder, say thank you very much for your work, do it from the beginning, put my illustrations from the boxes into the column, and that's all. Now the heart of the algorithm. What happens if you need to mix text and illustration on the same column? When page builder creates a column, page builder uses the special length which is called vsize, the size of this column. And when the page builder does this, it knows nothing about your illustrations. So for page builder, the column is a full column of text. If I don't have illustrations for this page, it's right. But what happens if I do? This means that I cannot use this column. It's too large for me. So here's a trick. And the trick was the heart of this thing. The trick was this. I look at vsize, which is global parameter. I look what my column must be, because when I'm in the OTR, I already know what my column must be. If they're different, I change vsize, because I know what my column must be, and start page builder again. What happens if they're equal? If they're equal, it means that I'm on the second pass, because I already changed vsize, and it means that page builder knows the right vsize. So if it happens, it means that I can actually put my illustrations, I can put my text here, I can output this without problem. So the only neat trick, the only thing I needed to invent was this part of the OTR. Everything else was, easy. Okay, second stage of OTR. Second stage really easy, because if I at the end of my first column, well, I don't have second column yet, I will just save it and go ahead. If I have two columns, well, I need to add illustrations, because maybe that I have already some wide illustrations here, or maybe I also need to add decorations. Decorations here are running heads, running foots, all this stuff, folio numbers. You need to reset your vsize, because it means that at this point you need to start with a real vsize, and that's all. Special case. What happens if I have illustrations only page? Well, again, what should I do? Okay, I have big illustration, add decorations, fine. Okay, what works right now? Text flows. It means that if you have really long text with a lot of boxes, everything goes from page to the page. With one important thing, the pattern must be the same. What I mean by pattern? It means that if you have, for example, wide illustration on recto pages, and then on recto pages you have single, it actually breaks because, because at some point you will have boxes on the boxes. So also what doesn't work, I did not put any full proofing in my file. It means that if you say that on this page you want wide illustration and big illustration, I don't know what happens. It does not do. They will probably not overlap, but I never tried. Well, as you know, 90% of the code accounts for 90% of the development time. And the remaining 10% of the code accounts for the other 90% of development time. So what I did a trick. I did not spend the other 90%. So my code works for the customer, which actually makes all with the statistical data actually made by scripts, and scripts are not going to make errors. It's probably not robust enough to warrant big real use, but I just didn't put my time into it. So what happens is that, yes, you can use text to create a book which is not like other books. You can create a book which is not text. It's illustration and text around. A little bit about the code. I always try to put my code on C10, but here I really don't know what to do because look, I don't think people should create the books which look like Food and Agriculture Organization of United Nations statistical yearbook. And I don't, but on the other hand, it would be, I didn't spend time just to factoring out what would be just this part of the OTR because I don't know whether people are so much interested. But fortunately, they actually allowed me to put the code on GitHub, so you can download, you can look, and if you have any ideas, or if you want to have some sort of a class which would be something like art album .cls or something, I can probably do it if there is interest, but right now I don't know. Acknowledgements. First, I'm really thankful to people from the customer. Well, not just because they paid me, but this was nice, but they actually had a lot of patience in testing, beta testing, in talking, it was really nice to work with them. I really like this. Also, I'm grateful to Hans Hagen and to Frank because when I wrote to them and said, well, I wrote it, I think it's trivial, and said, well, they told me maybe it's trivial, but you probably should make a talk, and gave me some pointers to the literature, and thank you. Without their support, I would probably not do it. A little bit about how much time does it take. Again, I will talk about tech users group conferences. You remember the last year conference in Japan? It was absolutely also great. Okay, it takes about 10 hours or 12 hours to go from United States to Japan. So on the way to Japan, I wrote the interface. On the way back, I wrote the code. and actually, by the way, if you have any problems with the jet lag, here's what I found out. If on the flight you just work, you don't have any jet lag. You don't have time for jet lag. So that's what I did, and that's what the work I wanted to present.
So I have a question, Boris. You started by saying in these books, the illustrations are primary and the text is secondary.
Yes.
But in your code, it sounded like the whole output stream was still only being triggered when you had enough text.
And that's how the tech is constructed. I cannot trigger output routine as a well, maybe I can. I just don't know how. But it looks like I cannot trigger the output routine. Excuse me?
Penalty minus 10,000.
Yes, but I put my illustrations, and I don't know yet whether I have enough illustrations to create a page. And even if I have, I don't know whether I have enough text to put in the empty spaces in the illustration. So I thought about triggering this, but the thing is, if I put my illustrations in the boxes to use them afterwards, I need some way to tell myself, okay, I'm ready to create page. And this is what Page Builder does.
So is there text on every spread?
No, because I have this command clear spread, which basically says, and it's actually it's much easier than LaTeX clear spread, because LaTeX clear spread creates this infinite, this special case OTR. My OTR is much simpler than LaTeX. There are not many special cases, and my clear spread just adds and adds, just calls and calls output routine until I don't have anything in my boxes. So the thing is that unlike LaTeX, I don't need to create the whole number of special output routines. I have just standard output routines and one special case when I have just page with illustration only. But one thing you need to do in this thing, you need to put clear spread to the beginning of your sections automatically, because you need to spew all the illustrations, and at the end of the documents. Otherwise, you will finish document with lots of boxes of illustrations.
Two questions, if I may. Does the yearbook only appear in English, or is there like a French edition as well? So you would have different issues in terms of
good question. When I signed the agreement, they told me that they're going to publish this in 5 languages, and I started to think, okay, how I'm going to deal with Arabic. But then they told me, you know what, we decided to put it in English right now, and the plans to do it in other languages, they postponed and postponed. So if they want it, they will do it. I will do it for them.
So in that case, you would then run your routine once for each language, would you?
I hope that it will work with all the languages, or at least all languages from left to right scheme. If I found out that I need to change it for right to left, or for well, I hope that in Chinese it also will work.
You're going to find, for example, if you have to do a German edition, you've got more text.
This thing works with text fine, no problem. It works. It works with the text well. The text can overflow and go in the next page. It takes care of this.
My other question was, how do you prevent references to your figures and tables appearing either too far or away from the figures and tables, or, for example, over the page?
Well,
where
it's not my problem anymore, because as soon as the author says, I want my illustrations to be here, okay. Yeah.
I understand this correctly, that you mix in the source the text and the illustrations.
The preferred way to do it, you start a section, you put your illustrations, and then text.
In the output.
Input, yes, in the input, yeah, as a preferred way, because if you don't, I might trigger the output routine when I don't have enough illustrations, and that's when I get. But they actually mix it in other ways, and it's still.
You could also, I mean, in theory, it would make your life, if you like, easier if you have the completely separate files, because the definition of where the illustration should go to.
No, because text is not completely completely disengaged from illustrations. Text relates to illustrations, so it should be there. Fortunately, okay, if I had huge chunks of texts with illustrations, it would probably. Fortunately, they usually have some sort of couple of spreads and text with the spreads, and this works. But if I had completely different files, it would be also bad, because I would have, for example, I would have illustrations about rice in Africa, and text would talk something about wheat in Asia. This would also not work.
You could still, in the text part, just say, okay, this is the end of a certain section.
Yeah, it can, but then.
It would be then easier if you have different languages, because then you don't mix and match. If you have
Maybe.
the same illustrations with different languages of text, then having everything in one source makes it more difficult.
Maybe, but remember, text is not source for them. These illustrations are produced by scripts from R, and R is source for them. This text file is also generated.
So when the authors are describing in the text,
Yes.
referring to a figure, do they always refer to figure 2, or do they ever refer to the figure below or the figure on the opposite page?
they refer to figure 2 and 8, and they have the standard LaTeX, because standard LaTeX ref label works. If they wanted to do it, yeah, I could take ref and probably put it, probably beat into submission to put it right, but they didn't want to. But basically, if you look, they have rather chunky style. They have a spread, maybe 2 spreads, next section, which makes, again, if they had longer sections, lots of bugs here would probably surface. But because they didn't, my life was much easier.
There's a use case for this. I did an ebook for a lady who wrote children's books. These are illustrations of
Yeah.
animals.
Yeah, yes.
Poetry on the right.
Yes. Ebook or any student's book are also this, because in students you also students textbook you also would want to put a lot of illustration and then to put text around.
It's a nightmare doing it on ebook.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Well, it's time to speak.
Thank you.